and true story time about how one of my favorite and top artists at the rappers that is locked me in his hotel room. And y'all, I did ask permission before giving this story because he is now deceased, told to use abbreviation, so we will call him SW. I'm at this club in Lake Charles, a baby dancer at this time, so much of a baby dancer that I literally made my own outfit from Hobby Lobby stuff in Walmart. So I go to this club in Lake Charles, me and my two homegirls, and that club, it was like a hole in the wall, but it was such an easy trap. Like, the money was so good, we didn't have to pay no tip out, no nothing. So fast forward, this group of guys comes in. He had just had a concert, the rapper and his entourage. They come in, like the after party, which I knew nothing about. Everybody's flocking to him. I'm moving around, I'm trying to be like mysterious and for a picture like towards the end of the night, and he's just like eyeing me. I thought he was eyeing me, but I thought maybe it was just like, so I didn't pay nothing, I didn't pay no real mind to it. As I'm leaving out of the section, his manager stops me and tells me that he wants me. Exchange contacts, I give him my number, and when I'm leaving the club packing up, manager is telling me like, SW wants you here, can y'all pull up? Well, he said, can you pull up? So I'm like, okay, cool, which was the address to his hotel room. As soon as I get to the hotel room, I'm literally contemplating in the car. Y'all like, should I bring my homegirls up with me? Should I go by myself? Like, mind you, it's like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun is damn near coming up. So I'm like, I should be okay. I had them come up there with me. They came upstairs. They came to the room with me. And this was like a hill. And I knock on the door. And y'all, when I knock on the damn door, it is pitch black. Pitch black. And I know y'all probably like, okay, no. It was weird. The door opened, it was pitch black. Like, the dude is standing in the doorway, nothing but his drawers on. He's tall as shit. Y'all, he's so damn tall. I'm not gonna lie. If I was straight, I probably would have went. But don't quote me on that. But he was a tall man. He was active, but I just wasn't attracted, So he's looking at me like, who the hell told you to bring these girls with you or whatever? But I was so young and naive, I really just ain't care. You can't bring everybody around everybody because, y'all, if anything would have happened to me, I would have been ass. Because they were literally like so like fanned out. They were talking about they needed breakfast. They were cold. So the dude, SW, sent them downstairs to breakfast and told them to charge everything to his room. They're leaving. I'm stuck in the room with this half naked behind man. I'm not trying to do all of that. I made it clear to him that I wasn't even interested in men at the time, 18 or 19 years old. I cannot remember exactly my age, but I did tell him it did have teen afterwards, okay? This man did not care. He literally, he's getting closer to me, like trying to take my little straps down and stuff, and I'm kind of like, I'm really still a child in the mind. So like, I'm he. Y'all, this man, I get up, I stand up, he literally starts like chasing me around the bed. Like, the bed was in the center and this is the room. So like, I'm going like this and he's following me, going where I literally leap over the bed and he follows me. He's had a little chuckle or whatever. He's thinking I'm playing the whole time. I'm not. Loosen up, it's cool, like it's fine. I was not going. When the aggression started and he just was like, I'll lock you in here. Like, no shit, I'll lock you in here. Like, if you don't give me what I want, I'll lock you in here. It could have been like it could have ended really bad. But thank God it did not. It did not exit me like a couple days after that. But I'm not gonna lie. I feel it's so weird that men really don't care how young you are. Like, I know I was in a setting of being a dancer, but it's like at some point when a female says no, that means no. So y'all, this man started to tell me things that he would have enjoyed to do to me. And when I say, y'all favorite rappers be nasty. I can't even repeat. But that has to be illegal.
Did you know that one of the youngest women ever put on death row buried her victims alive? Tiffany Cole grew up in Charleston in a very abusive, unstable childhood. Her mother was just awful. Her stepdad was a very violent, abusive man. One time he even threw a puppy at the wall and broke its neck. When Tiffany was 16, her biological dad began to SA her. When she told her mom and her mom did not believe her, Tiffany ran away, only to return and move back in with her dad when he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, so she could be her dad's full-time caregiver. During this time, Tiffany got super close to the couple that lived next to her dad, and they were Carol and James Reggie Sumner. Carol and Reggie were a great couple. It was both of their second marriage. The couple actually dated back in high school but broke up when they were 16. Carol's first husband was a truly awful, abusive, violent man. One day he actually tried to kill Carol. He shot Carol multiple times before turning the weapon on himself. Miraculously, Carol survived, but in the hospital she was given a blood transfusion which gave her hepatitis C, which later resulted in cancer. And after all of these terrible things happened to Carol, she was just trying to recover and rebuild her life. She gets a new job at a call center for a cable network, and one day her ex-boyfriend from high school, Reggie Sumner, calls the call center, and that's how Carol and Reggie reconnected 40 years after high school. They were both in their 50s now, and they got married. And that's also how they became neighbors to Tiffany and Tiffany's dad, and they just felt so bad for Tiffany, this young girl who was putting off her life to take care of her sick dad, and they became almost like adoptive parents to Tiffany, and they would do anything they could do to help her. And when Carol and Reggie eventually moved to Jacksonville, Florida, they told Tiffany that she was welcome to stay with them anytime. In May of 2005, Tiffany meets and starts casually dating a guy named Michael Jackson, but no, obviously not that Michael Jackson. Tiffany and Michael Jackson plan a trip to visit a friend of theirs that lives in Jacksonville, Florida, and of course, while they're there, they stay with Carol and Reggie Sumner. And they are just so excited to see Tiffany. They open their doors to her and Michael, and sometime during the trip, either Carol or Reggie mentions to Tiffany and Michael that when they sold their house in Charleston, they made a profit of over $100,000. So after the trip, Tiffany and Michael Jackson began planning how to rob Carol and Reggie Sumner, the two people who had just welcomed them into their home. For weeks, they planned how to rob the Sumners, and eventually those plans escalated to robbing and killing Carol and Reggie Sumner with no explanation why, just completely terrible and senseless. They also recruited two friends, Alan Wade and Bruce Nixon. Multiple times they made the trip from Charleston to Jacksonville, Florida, just so they could find like the quickest route, I guess. And one of those times they pre-dug a grave in an isolated wooded area in Georgia. On July 8th, 2005, they all drove down to Jacksonville for a final time. They had Alan and Bruce go up to the front door first because the Sumners didn't know them, and they told the Sumners that their car broke down and asked to use their phone. And because Carol and Reggie were just like the best people, they were super trusting and would literally help anyone, they let the two men in. Almost immediately after getting into their home, they pulled out a fake weapon that looked real enough, and they said, "Do what we say." They tied up Carol and Reggie, and then Michael Jackson came in, and together all three men robbed the place. They put Carol and Reggie in the trunk of their own car and then drove to that pre-dug grave in Georgia. And then they shoved them into the bottom of that 6-foot grave that they had dug. And Tiffany Cole was there watching the entire thing, which means that the Sumners knew that this girl that they loved and trusted was behind this entire thing. And then in one of the most heartless and disgusting things I've ever heard, truly I was crying while researching this, they slowly began to shovel dirt on top of Carol and Reggie, burying them alive. And yes, Tiffany was there watching the entire thing. After committing this evil, cold murder, the four killers ditched Reggie and Carol's car in Florida. They then went and tried to pawn off a bunch of Carol and Reggie's things. They also took their debit cards and went to multiple ATMs and tried to absolutely drain their bank accounts. And with all that money, they rented a limo and took all these pictures partying after burying a sweet old couple alive. When Carol's daughter, who talked to her mom every single day, couldn't get a hold of her mom, she knew something was wrong and she called the police. And very quickly, it was obvious that they were missing people. Their place was ransacked and they found their car abandoned. The search for Carol and Reggie became big news. And then out of nowhere, the police get a call from Reggie Sumner, who was really Michael Jackson pretending to be Reggie Sumner. Reggie told the police that they were fine. They were just on a spontaneous trip. He even had his wife, Carol, get on the phone and talk to the police too. But obviously, it was Tiffany pretending to be Carol. And why they thought this was going to work, I have no clue. The police said it was really obvious that they were imposters. Reggie and Carol were in their 60s, and Michael and Tiffany weren't trying to act like they were in their 60s. It was really clear that the people on the phone were in their 20s. They also recorded this phone call and showed it to Carol's daughter, who said that it was very much not her mom talking on the phone. Because they are truly the world's dumbest criminals, they were able to track the phone number that they used to call the police. They were able to track Reggie and Carol's debit cards to the ATMs where they drained their bank accounts, and those ATMs had cameras, so they saw them on camera draining their bank accounts. Also on camera in the back was a rental car that Tiffany had rented that they were able to track back to Tiffany. And when they tracked them all down and arrested them, they literally had on them some of the stuff that they had stolen from Reggie and Carol, including their car keys and their debit cards. Bruce was the first one to crack. He confessed everything, including that they had buried them alive and even showed them where they could find their bodies. And when they found Carol and Reggie's bodies, they were hugging each other. Bruce pled guilty and was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Michael, Tiffany, and Alan all pled not guilty, but were given the death penalty. Michael was 25 years old, Tiffany was 25 years old, and Bruce and Alan were 20 years old. Tiffany Cole is one of the youngest women to ever be sentenced to death and be put on death row. But in 2017, all 3 of their death sentences were changed to life without the possibility of parole. Also, while behind bars, Alan Wade found love. He got married and also apparently had a baby, even though the prison that he was in didn't allow conjugal visits. So don't know if that was his baby, but he also became a reality TV star. Yep, he appeared in some reality show about finding love after lockup.
Do you want to know what this man said? Because I'm going to tell you and you're going to be like, how could he be so stupid? Do you need to give a warning for this video? This video does involve the death of a young child. So if you think that that is triggering to you in any way, shape, or form, or you think it's going to negatively affect your mental health, please skip this video. Skip this video and I will see you in my next one. Your mental health has always been and will always be #1 priority. So yeah, take care of yourselves. Love you. Richard Allen Davis was born in 1954 in San Francisco, California. He was the middle child. He had 2 older siblings and 2 younger siblings, and he grew up in a deeply dysfunctional and violent home. His parents, both of them, were just horrendous people. They were horrible to each other, and the kids grew up seeing that. Their family was very unstable. They moved around all the time as well, which only made things harder, and the parents were both very neglectful to all the children. And on top of that, there was frequent physical mistreatment shown more oftentimes than not to the children. Richard's mother would use violence to discipline her children. But the thing is, it doesn't even sound like she was trying to teach them a lesson, to teach them right for wrong. It was just more so her punishing them when they got in trouble and doing things to them on purpose to harm them and to inflict pain on them. When Richard was 10 years old, his parents separated and all of the kids chose to stay with the father. From that moment on, the mother, which probably was a good thing, basically walked out of their life. She never cared or made any kind of efforts to see them ever again. And throughout the next few years, Richard's life remained awful. The dad brought a lot of harm to the children as well. At one point, the dad broke Richard's jaw from how bad he was hurting him. All that to say, all that Richard knew from the day that he was born was violence, and that would be something that Richard carried with him for the rest of his life. When he was still young in middle school and his early high school years, Richard Davis was in and out of juvenile detention centers and psychiatric institutions. He was showing serious behavioral issues that he had had his entire life. He was not a very well-liked person because there was something so alarming about him. And his first act of displaying aggression and or violent behavior was when he would start walking around the neighborhood that he lived in, weapon in hand, kitchen sharp weapon in hand, looking for people's pets, dogs or cats to make his victims. I do not want to go into detail on that, but you know what I mean. At 15 to 16 years old, he started breaking into people's houses. At 17 years old, he got caught for theft, first stealing a motorcycle, and after that, he joined the army, but only for 13 months. After that, he was honorably discharged. This word, honorably discharged? By 1973, he was 19 years old. He had no job, no direction, and no remorse. And he decided that what he was going to do with his free time would be to go on a crime spree. He would break into people's houses and commit burglary. He did this over and over again, close to 20 times before he was caught. And then he was convicted and sent to prison. But that was honestly just the beginning of a pattern that he would repeat for the next 2 decades. Crime, prison, parole, repeat. Because when Richard would get in trouble for something and he would be behind bars, he would never learn anything except how to get better at not getting caught. He committed burglary again, he was caught again, went to jail again, and was released again. Do you see what I mean about a pattern? Then in 1976, when he was 22 years old, his crimes escalated. He decided that stealing just wasn't enough for him anymore. He wanted to take it a step further. He was looking for the adrenaline that he liked. He was kind of bored of just stealing houses. He wanted more because he liked the rush that he got when he did things that he knew were wrong. And at 22 years old, he decided to kidnap a woman, weapon in hand, a 26-year-old girl he saw at a parking lot. He snuck up to her forced her into his car and threatened to end her life. The woman was thankfully able to open the car door and escape. She flagged down a car to help her, which with her luck ended up being a police officer, and with his help, Richard Allen Davis was caught and once again arrested, sentenced, and sent to prison. When in custody, Richard faked unaliving himself, and it was ruled that he would be transported from a jail to a psychiatric hospital, and when he was being transported, he managed to escape some way, somehow, and just like that, he was out on the streets yet again. And what did he do? Well, he broke into another house with a woman inside, and he threatened the woman, hurt her physically in more than one way, and then he ran away. He then broke into an animal shelter, stole some money. He then attacked another girl at a parking lot with a weapon. She luckily was also able to escape. Then he broke into the house of another woman, left the house, and hid in the bushes. By the way, all of this happened in less than a week, I think 5 days to be exact. But anyways, when he was inside the house, that woman's house, and then he went outside, hid in the bushes, he was watching this girl like a peeping Tom, but because he had broken into her house, this girl could tell that something was weird, and she was scared, and she called the police, and the police went over there, and they found Richard hiding in the bushes. Like, what a scary, disgusting man. Also embarrassing. How old are you? You're hiding in the bushes? Like, do you not have something else to do for fun? I don't understand. Anyway, he was finally rearrested and taken back to jail. He returned to jail not only to finish off his original sentence, but now he's handed more sentences for everything that he did in his little 5-day crime spree. So by this point, he's racked up a string of convictions: burglary, robbery, kidnapping, but somehow he just keeps getting out. And that's exactly what happened 6 years after. At 28 years old, he was released again, and to no surprise, he goes right back to doing the only thing that he knows how to do: committing crime. But this time around, he decides that he needs a little partner in crime, so he finds himself a little girlfriend, and she becomes his partner in crime. Together, they do everything that Richard has already done, but now they do it together. Across multiple state lines, they rob banks, they rob stores, they break into houses, they rob people, they do substances, they go out, they cause chaos, they threaten people. They are just complete and utter menaces together, violent, dangerous criminals, and they do this for 6 months until they get pulled over for a traffic violation. They get arrested and charged. For their 6-month crime spree, Richard was sentenced to 16 years, and his little girlfriend, partner in crime, received a 6-month sentence. Are you overwhelmed yet? Because I am. I know this is a lot, but stay with me. By July of 1993, Richard Allen Davis was a clear and obvious criminal. He had served time in at least 8 different prisons and violated parole more than once. Psychologists who saw him, met with him, talked to him, described him to be manipulative, hostile, dangerous, and beyond reform, meaning they didn't know what to do to help him, or I hate to say fix him, but you know what I mean. He was 39 years old at this time. He had only served 8 out of his 16-year sentence, but guess what? Do I even need to say it? He was released. He was released in July, and only 3 months later, he would commit his worst crime yet. 12-year-old little Polly Klaas lived in Petaluma, California. She was born January 3rd, 1981, and she lived in that quiet little town just north of San Francisco. She loved acting. She loved dressing up in costumes and performing plays in her living room. She was the cutest little girl, and she was like an inspiring actress from the moment that she was like 3 years old. She loved to act. She had long brown hair, the prettiest eyes, and the kindness that radiated through everyone around her. Her friends described her as the kind of girl who made everyone feel included. Her teachers thought that she was funny and creative, and her parents both referred to her as their little ray of sunshine. She lived with her mother Eve and her little sister. Her parents were divorced, but they had a very, very healthy co-parenting relationship. October 1st of 1993 was the day that everything changed for Polly Klaas. It was a Friday night, and she had 2 of her friends over for a slumber party at her mother's house, and the girls did what 12-year-old little girls do. They laughed, they played, they tried on Halloween costumes, they braided each other's hair, and around 10:30 p.m., Polly's mom went to bed. The little girls were still up playing, but just as the night was winding down, a strange and gross man crept into the house through a window, carrying a sharp weapon with him. When Polly opened the door of her bedroom to walk out and go grab sleeping bags for her and her friends, she saw Richard Allen Davis standing just outside of her bedroom. This was Polly's biggest fear. She was a 12-year-old little girl who firstly was scared of the dark, but secondly was terrified of the boogeyman. She was always scared. It was always her biggest fear that the boogeyman would sneak into her house and kidnap her. And that night, her biggest fear was standing right before her eyes. Richard walked into Polly's room with his weapon, and he ordered the girls to be quiet. And keep in mind, these are 3 children that we're talking about. They were so scared of what was happening, they probably didn't even understand what was happening. Richard ordered Polly's 2 friends to lie on the ground and not look up at him. He tied them up with strips of cloth, placed pillowcases over their heads, and whispered that he was only there to rob the place and he wasn't going to hurt them. Then he turned to Polly, and just like that, she was gone. No one screamed, no one ran. They were too scared. By the time that the girls did scream for help, by the time that they went to go wake up Polly's mother, Polly Klaas had vanished. Richard forced her into his car, and he drove off with her. Minutes later, after realizing that Polly was gone, Polly's mom, Eve, called 911, and police arrived quickly. And the news of this traveled quickly. Petaluma was a quiet small town. Things like like this did not happen in their town. Kids were not kidnapped from their house. Polly's friends, still very much in shock, were able to give police a description of the man who had broken in. A white male, stringy hair, smelled like, had a weapon, calm and calculated. Amber Alerts did not exist back then, but what followed was one of the biggest large child abduction searches in U.S. history. Flyers with Polly's photos were plastered across California. Pictures of flyers of her were all over telephone poles, store windows, and TV screens. Celebrities also helped spread the story. The air in Petaluma felt thick. It felt eerie. In the days following Polly's disappearance, parents started locking their doors, locking their windows. Sleepovers were canceled. Children were scared. Over 4,000 volunteers helped in the search. They walked fields, checked bodies of water, handed out flyers, and lit candles. FBI agents joined the search. Helicopters circled above. A hotline was used for the public to call in with any leads or any tips, and for the next 60 days, law enforcement did everything they could to find this little girl. But it seemed that the man who had taken Polly had disappeared without a trace. But what no one knew then was that only 1 hour after Polly was taken, the man who took her crossed paths with law enforcement and slipped right through their fingers. Just 1 hour after the kidnapping, Richard Allen Davis was spotted by a babysitter and her employer near rural property in Sonoma County, around 40 miles away from where Polly lived. He was trespassing, he was acting strange, and he was covered in scratches. Police were called, they showed up, they spoke to Richard, they spoke to the owner of the house whose property he was on, asked the owner if they wanted to press charges, and the owner said, "I don't want to press charges, just please get him off of my property." So the police talked to Richard, they ran his ID, they helped him get his car out of a ditch that it was stuck in, and they let him go. They didn't see Polly, they didn't know that this guy had just kidnapped a little girl 1 hour prior, they didn't know and somehow didn't find out after running his ID that Richard Allen Davis was a career criminal. That night he walked away and the officers did not connect him to Polly's disappearance. The search continued and spread quickly throughout the next 60 days, and on November 28th, 2 months after Polly Klaas disappeared, police received another 911 call. The property owner in Sonoma County, where Richard had been that night when he got his car stuck in a ditch, was cleaning something outside when she found something disturbing. Items belonging to a child, including torn ballet tights, a red sweatshirt, and a pair of red tights that matched what Polly had been wearing the night that she disappeared. She called police immediately and they came out to search the area. This was huge because they now realized for the first time that the night this man was found on this person's property was the same night that this 12-year-old little girl was taken from her house. And remember, they scanned his IDs. They had spoken to him, so they knew exactly who they were looking for. They knew exactly who their guy was. They found him, they arrested him, and they took him in for questioning. Polly's two friends were also able to confirm that that was the guy that they saw in Polly's bedroom that night. When officers arrested Richard, he didn't panic. He didn't try to run. He acted like a man who had played the system before and thought he still could. He honestly had a really weird and gross confidence about him. They sit him down and they ask him what he had been doing the night of October 1st, 1993, the night Polly Klaas disappeared from her bedroom. And do you want to know what this man said? First of all, he said the reason why he was in town that night to begin with was because he was visiting his mother. He said that that day he was at a park and said he started to feel a little bit out of it, a little bit groggy. And then he said that what he did next was a blur. He didn't really know how or why he got to Polly's house. He couldn't say what he did. He said he didn't remember. He said that one moment he was at the park and the next he was in his car with this little girl and he was confused. Poor guy. Give me a break, dude. He said he crashed his car in a ditch. He was standing on that person's property and said that he took Polly out of his car, hid her in the bushes, then ran into the police, talked to the police. And when the police left, Richard went back to the bushes to find Polly and decided right then and there that this had gone too far. Polly had seen his face. She would be able to recognize him. And to avoid getting caught, he made the decision that he needed to get rid of her. He needed to end her life. So he drove her north to a wooded area. She was crying and begging. And then Richard, using a piece of cloth, tightened it around her neck until she was gone. He ended her life. He dumped her body by a bush, covered it with branches and leaves, and then he left. He left her there for 60 days. Richard led authorities to the exact spot where Polly's body was. She was still wearing the same red tights that she had been wearing at her sleepover. Her body by this point had been severely decomposing and had been outside in the woods for 60 days for so long that they couldn't even test for her cause of death. Richard was charged with the death of Polly Klaas, and his trial began in 1996, nearly 3 years after Polly had been kidnapped. And Richard was facing charges for first-degree kidnapping, burglary, and attempted. The prosecution painted him as a cold, calculated monster who silenced a child and had a violent history that made his crime predictable. His defense spoke about his childhood trauma and tried to say that he was a damaged person and that's why he did what he did. Wrong. People have trauma and they don't other people. The jury found Richard guilty on all charges, and after the fact, Richard was given a chance to speak. He stood up, and with the cameras rolling in the courtroom, he made an obscene gesture. He put both of his middle fingers up in the air and delivered a vile and false claim. He said that Polly had told him that her father had SA'd her. He said that to her father in the courtroom. It was his final act of cruelty. He's disgusting. The judge, the jury, Polly's family were disgusted with his behavior. You could hear them gasping in the courtroom. The judge looked at Richard and said, quote, "Mr. Davis, this is not the time for you to spew garbage. Sit down," end quote. In 1996, Richard Allen Davis was sentenced to death. Today, he is 70 years old and he still is on death row. After the trial and after the sentencing, Polly's family faced the painful reality that even though justice was served, nothing could ever or would ever bring Polly back. Her father, Mark, channeled his grief into advocacy, founding the Klaas Kids Foundation to help protect children and support families of missing children. Polly's memory lives on through his work and in the hearts of those who followed her story. Her legacy became a symbol of change, prompting stronger laws around child abduction and inspiring a national conversation about child safety. Her family remembers her as a vibrant, loving girl who continues to be loved and missed every single day and will for the rest of their lives. That is all I have for today's story. It's heartbreaking. This is the most disgusting man that I've ever met, and I never want to speak about him again.
So we were staying at my grandparents' house, and I was supposed to be going to a concert the next day. And that night, he was playing Xbox, and I was sitting on the bed, and he had his headset in, he was talking to his friends, whatever. And so I decided I was going to try on the outfit that I was going to wear for the concert. And mind you, this was a concert where the audience was going to be 99% women, and the 1% was going to be gay men. So there was nothing to worry about on his end. But I tried on my outfit, and I was wearing a skirt. It's cold outside. So I was wearing a skirt with tights underneath, and the skirt went just above my knees. And I was wearing combat boots, like Doc Martens, and like a white long sleeve shirt. Also, this night, he had been drinking because he was socializing like with my grandparents, and so they were like offering him wine, and he was drinking, and like he was drinking whiskey too. And he was on Xbox, and I walk into the room with my outfit that I was going to wear to the concert. Looked at me, and he was like, "You're not wearing that to the concert." We had already been arguing back and forth before that, but I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "First of all, it's winter. Why are you wearing a skirt?" I was wearing tights underneath. And he was complaining about the length of my skirt, which it was a cargo skirt, and it was almost to my knees, so it wasn't short, literally by any means. And I do this thing when I'm like in confrontation, or when I feel like I'm being scolded, or I'm in trouble, or like someone's like yelling at me or whatnot, I tend to like shut down completely. So I just like go silent, because I'm like, I don't know how to even react or respond to this. Like, it was a cute outfit too, like, isn't revealing in any way. So I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't know really how to respond to this. So I kind of just ignore him, and I change, and I lay in bed. And as the night goes on, he's getting more and more drunk, and he's again on Xbox with his friends, and he just starts talking. He's like talking shit about me to his friends, calling me a hoe and stuff like that. And I'm just laying there. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on at this point. And I'm so fed up also, because I'm just like, God, this motherfucker. Sorry, I had to turn on my ring light. But yeah, the more he's getting drunk, just the more irate he's getting, and the worse things he's saying about me to his friends. And so I like speak up and say something, and he just starts going off on me. He's telling me that I think I'm hot shit, and the more drunk he's getting, the less he's making sense. Whoa, look at the sparkles. He like made comments about my mom, saying that if I'm gonna dress like that, then I don't deserve to be his girl. He's getting louder and louder, like he's raising his voice at me, and this is at like 1 a.m. My grandparents had already gone to bed, and I was like not having it, because I'm not about to wake them up, because I would genuinely be so embarrassed if they woke up to him screaming at me. So I get up to walk out of the bedroom, and he grabs a pillow, because I'm trying to get up. He grabs a pillow and slams it as hard as he could into my face. He whacks me so hard with the pillow that I fall backwards, bro. Yeah, it's just a pillow, but no, he slammed it in my face as hard as he could. So I obviously get up, and I quietly scurry out of the room, because my objective is to get away from him, and he follows me out into the hallway. My grandparents' bedroom was across the hall of the bedroom that we were staying in, and so I was just trying to get away from there, because I didn't want to wake them up. So I was able to slip past him and beeline it for the bathroom, and I go in there, and I obviously lock myself in the bathroom, and luckily I had my phone, so I called my sister and my mom. Finally, they showed up, and it was so scary getting out of that bathroom. Luckily, my sister came to the front door, and got me. And so we walk out and he's following up both of us, and we walk outside, and like my sister, dude, thank God for my sister, follows us outside and he's still yelling, and my sister turns around and she's like, stop. She like got so strict with him, and he was just like I think that kind of snapped him out of it because it was someone else telling him to like chill. And so my mom's sitting in the car waiting, and so I like run and get in the car, but we have the windows rolled down, so we're listening to everything that my sister is telling him. And my mom's like, again, this is in the middle of the night. My mom rolls down the window, she starts yelling at him, calling him all these names, and I'm like, Mom, please. I'm begging at this point. I'm like, guys, everyone, please just be quiet. Also, I know they would have called the cops if they had woken up. My sister had to go inside and pack me a little bag. And while she's doing that, he's standing outside talking to himself. At like 6 in the morning, my mom ends up driving me back to my grandparents' house. And when I went back inside, my grandpa was kicking him out. Yeah, don't ignore red flags.